right, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another Wellspring interview. Again, you probably already watched the one I did with Carly talking about worship, but today I'm really excited to sit down with Jessica. She is a teacher at Island Heights Elementary School, and what I want to do today is kind of a dialogue about with the craziness of our times, kind of a teacher's perspective on this stuff, and then maybe some resources, because I'm sure a lot of parents are kind of now dealing with their kids at home, and maybe just some tips and tricks about how we can help parents along this journey. But before we go any further, Jessica, I want to kind of give you a moment to introduce yourself, and to kick off, like, your story. You're a teacher right now. How did you kind of get into teaching, and tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so hi, for anyone who doesn't know me, my name is Jessica. I feel like my story for teaching is a pretty stereotypical one. I had like the world's best second grade teacher. It's a phenomenal woman named Mrs. Barnowski. I still have a relationship with her today. My parents actually just became next door neighbors with her, which is like the coolest thing ever. But growing up, if you asked me what I wanted to be, my answer was always a second grade teacher, because I wanted to be like her. And I really never wavered from that. So I went to college, I got degrees in elementary and special education. I went back and got my master's in ed leadership and administration. So that's an option on the table for maybe a few years down the road. And when I graduated from college, I started teaching down in Virginia. I taught fifth grade for a few years, and then transferred schools when a second grade job opened up, because that was the dream. So I did eventually make it to second grade. And then last year I moved back to New Jersey. I grew up in Toms River and just wanted to be closer to family. So I moved back to Toms River and started teaching in Island Heights. And now I am a sixth grade math and science teacher. And I also provide gifted services for everyone in my school. So K to 6.
That's awesome. And one of the things I know about you is you also help teach robotics.
I do.
So,
yeah,
so
I
cool.
robotics.
So cool. Okay, so to kind of kick this off, what are again, everything has changed, what feels like, for all of us. But for you as a teacher, what has kind of changed for you right now? And what are some of the challenges that you're facing in kind of this new normal?
Yeah, everything changed pretty quickly. We, sent our kids home on Friday, and at that point we hadn't even been notified that we were not coming back on Monday. It all happened over a weekend for my district, at least. But in terms of challenges, I have to be honest in saying I feel like because of the district and the town that I work in, I'm in a pretty good position right now. Not to say it's not challenging. Everything's kind of been turned upside down in a very quick way. But I know there are a lot of districts and teachers in a lot worse of a position. So starting with myself, I feel like the biggest challenge that my colleagues and I are facing right now is just uncertainty. We want to do right by our kids and the best thing for them. And it's really hard to come up with a plan and know what the right thing to do is when we don't know, are we going back on April 20th like they're currently saying? Are we going back at some point in mid-May? Are we not going back at all? Because as much as we would like to think we're going back on April 20th, several states have already made the decision not to reopen at all this year. So that is a reality and an option that's on the table. And I think we all know virtual learning would look very different if we knew it was 1 month versus 3 months. As new information kind of rolls in, they just canceled state testing in New Jersey, which is a huge win. But that's about 2 weeks of instructional time that we just gained back. So that kind of changes our plan and our course of action. If we're not doing field trips this year, if we're not doing carnivals, fun runs, we kind of gain all of those days back. So there's just a lot of question marks right now that's making it hard to know what the right thing to do is. Sorry if you hear my dog playing with a bone right now. But bigger picture, I think something that every district is trying to figure out right now is, what does our summer need to look like to try to make up for what's going on right now? What does next fall need to look like to try to make up for what's going on right now? And then, if you look at places like Philadelphia, New York City, the district that I used to teach in Virginia, I'll talk about Virginia. They closed down before New Jersey even did, and they still have not implemented any sort of virtual learning, distance learning. They're not even doing packets because they're trying to overcome so many equity issues right now. So how do you get technology into the hands of thousands of kids who don't have access to it? How do you get Wi-Fi into those households once you get them technology? How do you feed those children and make sure that the meals are as nutritious as they would be if they were in school? How are we providing English language learning services or special education services? You know, I'm in a pretty good place in my district, and we're still trying to figure out how do we provide contracted services like speech, OT, PT. So there's just a lot that we're still trying to work through. And, you know, all anyone wants is what's best for our kids and what's going to have the least harmful impact long term. But it's a lot to try to figure out very quickly.
What I get a general sense from you, and again, I think this goes to the bigger picture that we're all dealing with, is there is so much uncertainty.
Yes.
And so as you're kind of thinking about uncertainty, how are you, again, you've mentioned that you're kind of in a good place right now. You're not dealing with some of the challenges that others are, but how are you personally dealing with uncertainty?
I am trying to remind myself of all of the positives that I have in my circumstances right now, because I recognize that I am in a position that is better than so many others. And also reminding myself that it's out of my hands. When, you know, God wants me to know the answers, when he's ready for me to have the answers, I'll have them. And, you know, he loved us yesterday, he loves us today, he'll love us tomorrow. And you know, that's really all there is to it at the end of the day. Yeah,
that's great. I think, again, that's the position that we're all kind of getting ourselves to is, and I know this was a big wrestling moment for me this week of my personality wants to try and solve problems, have answers. And we're at a point right now where there really isn't, we can't solve these problems.
Right.
And we really have to give up that control and say, listen, this is the current circumstances we're in. So we can choose to have a great perspective and move forward, or be pessimistic and really fall into a pit. And I think that's the tension is, you know, going negative really doesn't help the current circumstances that we're in. Yeah. So on that topic of going positive, with kind of where we're at right now, do you see any opportunities as a teacher to kind of dive into this current circumstance?
Absolutely. I mean, I think the biggest thing right now is everyone is being pushed outside of their comfort zone, whether or not you want to be there. Teachers, students, parents, and especially, you know, in terms of technology and this whole distance learning thing, it doesn't matter how technologically savvy you were before this happened. Everybody is learning and growing right now. And I think anytime you're in a position to learn and grow, that's a pretty cool place to be. And just the thought that every single teacher and student will come back to school when that time comes with a whole new skill set is pretty cool. I think we're going to end up using a lot of new tools when we go back into the classroom that we weren't using before, because, you know, we're being forced to use them now. And some of them are great. I think, you know, in terms of looking for the helpers, that stands in the education world too. I can't tell you how many emails I'm getting every day from companies that are usually subscription or membership based, where they're offering free services to students now while all of this is going on. So that's really cool. If anyone, you know, needs resources, please email me, because I have pages of them. And just, you know, the opportunity for natural learning experiences and at-home learning experiences. I don't know if that's what parents want to hear right now, but teach your kids how to cook, you know, play board games with them. There are so many ways to teach your kid other than them doing worksheets or sitting at a computer. And I hope that we can all look back at this time and value the extra time that we had with our families.
That's awesome. I have been seeing that. Again, I don't have kids myself, but I have been seeing more and more like moms and dads sharing pictures with their kids, doing side projects and crafts and doing extra things. And I think, yes, we're in a tough season right now, but I think a lot of us are going to look back at this time of going, oh man, those moments were special.
Yeah.
So on the topic of parents, I'm sure there's tons and tons of parents watching this video right now going, my kids are home, was not planning on this. I don't know how to teach my kids. I don't know what to do. So as a teacher, what are maybe some practical things you could share as a teacher of how parents could maybe help their kids, or maybe some tips and tricks that as a teacher you would be like, I wish parents would be doing this?
Yeah, I have to be honest that I really feel like the most important thing that you can do for yourself and your child is to be gentle and patient with yourself and your child. As I mentioned before, we hope we're going back April 20th. Maybe we're going back May. Maybe we're not going back at all. But I think what everyone needs to be preparing for is the reality that, this could be 3 months. And so just trying to get by until April 20th isn't the right mindset to have right now, because if you burn yourself out and if you burn your child out, you're going to be in for a rough 2 months at the end of the year. So trying to find some sort of routine and mindset that works for you and your kid. I've seen a lot of pictures online of like schedules that people have made where, you wake up at 8 and you do your math from 9 to 10, and then you take a break and this time's for reading. And those are really great. Most kids thrive off of routine. If you can find one that works for your family, I would recommend that you do it. If you can't, the world is not going to end if your kid is not reading their book at 9:30 every day. You have to do what works best for you and your family. And I think the biggest, most important thing that I can say is if your kid needs a break, or if you need a break, take the break. I don't care if your kid is taking a break every 10 minutes. You give them as many breaks as they need to keep them happy and to make sure that they are not frustrated, because unhappy, frustrated kids don't make for good students. So try to keep it light and positive, all of the hugs and high fives in the world, all of the breaks that you need, that they need, even if they need to take a whole day off school, if they need it for their mental health, give it to them, because you want to foster long-term, not short-term. So, and then I would also say, I'm seeing a lot of like, I didn't learn this way. When I went to school, this is not how I learned how to do math, or I don't know how to teach reading. And that's okay too. Ask for help if you need it. Like I have so many resources that I could email to people, that you could print at home, that you could do on a computer, that maybe don't even need resources at all. But also really try to focus on the positive. If your kid is not a strong reader, don't get frustrated about that. We'll deal with it next year. We will get them caught up. Don't show frustration. Don't get upset with them. Focus on all of the things that your kid can do really well, and praise them for it. Because as I said, you really want happy kids who are ready to work and learn at home, if that's what we come to for the rest of the year.
What I love about that is, again, as adults, we're all adjusting to this new normal, right? We're trying to figure, I even know at my job, I'm trying to figure out, okay, this is different. I got to do this, and this. I'm sure that trickles down to kids, right? They've been thrown into this new normal situation, doing school at home and not used to their parents being there, helping with teaching. So I love the idea of letting them space to breathe and finding the routine that works for your family and your kids.
And kids are incredibly perceptive and read into things a lot. You would be shocked at the amount of kids that we have in school who will say like, oh, well, my mom wasn't good at math either. Or like, oh, my dad can't read. And they think that's like an excuse for them not to be able to do it. So offhand comments that you might think like, oh, well, I didn't learn this. They pick up on it and they really like stick to it and internalize it. And it doesn't benefit anyone. It might seem harmless, but it's, it's not the right path to go down.
Cool. So as we wrap up, when you think of yourself and kind of teachers in general, what are the things that people can be specifically praying for? Again, like you said, this could be 2-3 weeks, this could be 3 months, this could be wrestling with what do we do through the summer and the fall. So what are things that parents can be praying for, and us as just people can be praying for teachers?
Yeah, well, I feel like you fall into one of two big categories at this point, where it's either you're waiting for answers or you already know that your school is not going back this year. And both of those are hard for very different reasons, right? So for those of us who are still trying to plan the rest of this year and figure out what to do for our kids, just open hearts, open minds, clear vision for what the right answer is. But for those who already know they're not going back, that's a huge gut punch. Like, it's as much as an answer would be good, that's devastating news to get as a teacher, to know you're not going to see your kids again. You're not going to say a proper goodbye. For those kids, things like prom and graduation with certainty probably aren't happening, which is, it's hard. You know, of course you want to say like, no, there are bigger things to worry about right now. Prom doesn't matter. Graduation doesn't matter. Like, that's not what your kid wants to hear. That's not what a teacher who's been working so hard to make it happen wants to hear. So I think for teachers in states where schools have closed for the remainder of the year, just some sort of peace for themselves and their families, peace that their students are going to be okay, because a lot of those, you know, students come from tumultuous households. So you worry what will happen in those houses over the next 6 months now that they're not going to be in the same structure that they're used to. I don't know, I guess just peace for everyone and some sort of, you know, state of mind that this is all going to work out and be okay.
Yeah, and I think what I'm hearing too is that we're all in this together. You know, parents, as again, I'm sure that separation of kids not realizing that they're not going to see their teachers again for that year.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's a really hardship. So just being probably gracious in the situation and just praying for, like you said, for peace and wisdom and uncertainty and all those things, I think are probably going to be really, really important. So I think maybe you can send some links of some maybe top resources, and maybe we can put
absolutely
those in the description, because that way, again, parents or anyone can have some resources. But
yeah.
Jessica, thank you so much for taking the time today. I think this will be a huge resource for so many people who are kind of struggling in this kind of area. So again, thank you for taking the time today. And again, yeah, thank you. And I'm excited. You as a teacher, some of my fondest memories, I can still remember my teachers growing up, and they had such an impact on me. So thank you for you adjusting in this new normal and not giving up and just saying, I quit, but being willing to kind of force through it and teach these kids online.
Thank you so much for having me. It was nice to talk to someone over the age of 12.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you, and we'll see you later.
Bye.